Welcome to the Latino Podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, it's John Gomez, and welcome to this episode of the Latino Podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We bring on leading Latino lawyers, judges, legislators, community leaders, and influencers, thought leaders from our communities to talk about this thing called law. And so today I'm joined by my guest host, a former guest on the episode herself, Vanessa Felix Corona, a current law clerk awaiting to take the bar. So welcome back, Vanessa.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me. Like he said, I'm a recent law school graduate and I'll be sitting for the July bar exam. And right now I'm happily clerking at Gomez Child Attorney. So I'm happy to be here.
Super happy to have you. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Andrea Piontkovski, which is a Polish name. She comes to us originally from the country of Venezuela. I think she's our first Venezuelan guest.
Yay!
Hooray, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Were you, tell us about, let me just give a little bit of background. Today, she is an immigration lawyer practicing in the United States. You know, prior to coming here to our country, she was an actual attorney in Venezuela. So welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm so excited.
Yeah, she's cool, like a friend of mine. We spent great time together. Really got to know her on a trip out to Atlanta one time. And so, first of all, introduce us to Venezuela. You know, you growing up there, life as a kid, the food, all of that.
Venezuela, the country with the most beautiful women on earth, okay?
There you go, yeah. Of course.
I think we used to have a record of Miss Universe from Venezuela. So.
Okay, all right.
And we have a lot of oil, that's important to mention, and we're also famous for arepas.
Okay. And would you say that food, you know, came from your country?
You're gonna get me in trouble here. You know, there might be some Colombians listening to this podcast, but let's be honest, it's from Venezuela, guys. It's from Venezuela. I mean, we just stuff the arepas with a lot of meat, and that's our signature. But let's be honest. I know that Colombians claim that arepas are from Colombia. Mexicans say that gorditas are like arepas. You know, it's a highly controversial topic.
All right. And, you know, speaking of, you know, kind of controversial topics, we'll have some real controversial
That's true.
Later.
Yes.
But tell us about being a lawyer in Venezuela, why you wanted to do that, how that happened.
I didn't practice for too long. I only got the chance of practicing for almost a year. But it was a cool experience. I wanted to be a lawyer. And one of the things that I wanted was to be or to have the law on my side, know about my rights and duties, so that nobody could make me do something that I wasn't or something that I shouldn't do. So back in time, I was very influenced by politics in Venezuela. And I was always charismatic and a leader in my community. And I think that because of my personality, they were trying to use me for political reasons, until one day I said, I need to study law and nobody will use me ever again. And here I am. Now I'm an attorney in 2 countries. Yay!
Congratulations. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
And so I know you told me before, at some point you had your own radio show in Venezuela.
I did. That's what I'm here to steal your podcast.
Okay. You can have it.
No, and it was a great experience. And, you know, the funny thing is that many people used to make fun of me because they said, why a lawyer is going to have a radio show? Like, there was no connection on one thing and the other. And look at us nowadays.
Full circle.
That's right. I use those skills that I learned back in during that time I use it for my social media, my reels, my advertisement for my firm. So I'm very glad that I tried it and I did it, and now I'm using it.
Tell us, so you at some point decided to leave your birth country. Are your parents still there?
No, they're in heaven now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I don't have too much family there, but I still have my background there, you know. The thing is, the country that I left almost 14 years ago, that I realized it has been 14 today, it's not the same anymore. So I miss what I left, but it's not the same anymore. You know what I mean?
And so, like, maybe not all of our listeners really understand the political changes, economic changes that have occurred in Venezuela that maybe, caused you and many, 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 many others to leave that country, come here. Many in Mexico, I know a ton that live in Mexico City. Why did people like you leave that country?
Well, in 1999, a president called Hugo Chavez won the elections. And under the promises of a change and a revolution and other ideologies, he stayed in power until he died. And after he died, he basically put someone else from his own party to be the president forever. One of the important changes in that revolution was to change the constitution so that he could be reelected forever. And that's what happened. That's what happened in communism and in dictatorships. So that situation has triggered a lot of problems, financial problems, social problems. The entire country has imploded from the inside, like scarcity-wise, economy is ruined, and a lot of issues in terms of progress. Just to give you an example, someone who just works for like the city makes about $20 a month. But when that's the salary, the minimum salary for an employee, you go and buy a chicken, a rotisserie chicken, and it's $20. So
No way.
the disparity on the economy in Venezuela, it's crazy. And the inflation is actually a hyperinflation. So it's really hard to explain that and get into details in just a few minutes. But what I can say is that there is a lot of good people there.
Yes.
Still fighting and educating themselves and working really hard with the hope that one day we're going to have a free country.
Amazing. Well, I think to me, the $20 a month and then a chicken costs you $20, that explains it pretty well to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, so did you decide to leave and come to the United States?
Well, yeah, I was influenced by love at the time. I had a long distance relationship for 3 years, and I used to come, he used to go. And, that's life. Some people take you from point A to point B. I'm very thankful for that relationship because it brought me to one of the best countries in the world.
And so at some point, when you first came here, were you like, I want to be a lawyer here, or how did...
Oh, yeah. I'm one of those persons who like to continue or finish what started. So I was already a lawyer in my country, and I didn't just want to be in a limbo forever. So the first thing that I did was to go to USD and do some research on what I needed to do to become a lawyer here. And here I am. It took me some years. It took me an average of 7 years, the entire process. But It was possible. It's not impossible.
That's what you call perseverance.
That's a story of perseverance. That's right.
And so what do you think? What questions do you have? Like, you're kind of finishing up your law school part of things, about to take the bar.
Yeah.
Here, this woman comes from another country.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear your story, because I think that a lot of times when we get into law school and we start that journey, it's never a smooth ride. And like my bar experience, I was supposed to sit for the February exam, and that didn't happen, and I had to sit for July. But staying level-headed and persevering and understanding that this is just a part of the journey. It's not the end of a journey. It's really nice to hear, and to see another woman do it too is very inspiring. And like I was talking to you earlier, and I asked you, on your website, it says last year you guys had 100% success rate on your cases, and you had mentioned that you're very particular in the way that you evaluate your cases, and that's a very important skill that we learn in law school. So if you could tell us a little bit about when a case comes to you, how do you decide whether to take it or not? And what are some of the factors that you look for, especially as a new attorney coming in, learning how to evaluate cases?
I know that I cannot just filter cases that are 100% approvable. I know that there are certain situations where I have to be more flexible. Every case is different. And the decision is not up to me. Usually you have an officer reviewing the case and making a final decision. But what I can do is at least trust my client. So regardless of the possibilities, I'm very honest with my clients. And I tell them, hey, I see less than 50% options for you. Do you still want to move forward? And they tell me, even if it is just 1%, I just want to move forward. Well, okay. In those cases, I know that potentially the outcome is not going to be a good one, but I'm trying my best to help that person. But in general, I think the key is your client. If you have a client who is offering you a bunch of money, but you know that he's lying to you, I think that's the main red flag. So don't do anything just because of the money. Just listen to your guts. That's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. Listen to your guts. And sometimes I've made mistakes. Okay? Yeah. And I get hired by people who have crazy expectations or who lie to me. And I realize later on, but I have also learned how to just cut that relationship, if I have to refund the money, I'll do it. I have to grow in that sense that not every person is honest. And sometimes I believe everyone, I'm so friendly and I think everybody's telling me the truth. But I was lucky that last year, all I got was approvals. And it gave me a good sense that I'm on the right path, picking up my battles here.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We made some people happy last year.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you hear, I was a federal prosecutor before this job way back when, and some of the cases that I was doing would involve basically what we would call back then alien smuggling. Mm-hmm. And so I would have cases. One case I had involved 150 something people from the People's Republic of China that were being smuggled in a fishing boat. And, wow. You hear the stories of what people are willing to do to come to this country. Mm-hmm. And, then you are able to stamp the ticket and make them legal or help them, be legal. And you say that's a win. I can't imagine a bigger win.
Well, every case is different, though. And not everybody has an option. And that's something hard to hear, when I explain this to people. We have a lot of potential options. I have books and decisions and potential things to analyze, but not everybody has a legal way to come. And some people don't like to hear that.
Yes.
Some people want an option for sure. But if you came to this country without documents and then you got deported and then you came back and you did that 3 times, of course, you're not going to have any option. And it's not because of the attorney. It's because of the decisions that person made. I'm not here to judge anyone. Everybody is responsible for what they do. But my job is to be honest in terms of the law and explain, okay, well, you don't have an option. You do have an option. However, we see attorneys that always promise an outcome or, a resolution. And that's what I don't like.
Gosh.
Yeah. And that person doesn't have any option. But it's lucrative. And people do whatever they can to make the money and pay the attorney. So to me, it's sad. I just prefer to be honest.
I agree. And thank you for doing that. I think that's a service. I really like, and I know our listeners really like to, get inspiration from people who have pushed through and persevered. And so you said your journey was 7 years. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, some of the bumps and bruises and obstacles?
I love that part of my life. It's one of the biggest challenges. I started with English, okay? Because of course I knew English, but I needed to raise the bar. And USD is really hardcore in the score that you need for English. They needed, I think it was at the time, 100. And okay, it took me some time to pass the TOEFL test. But once I got there, I was like, okay, next challenge, give it to me. So it was law school. Instead of doing the JD in California, you can go straight to a master's. And that's what I did. But then I regretted it because I had to self-teach some of the classes. I didn't have a professor to teach me constitutional law, and it was so hard. But it was another challenge. I had to learn things from scratch, like how to write an essay in English. We don't answer exams in the way that Americans do in Latin countries. I'm going to give you an example. In Venezuela, they ask you, what color is the house? And as a good Venezuelan, you're just going to write 10 pages of an explanation of why the house is green or red. Or potentially yellow. But, the model that we have to use here is IRAC, and you start with an issue and then the rule and then analysis and conclusion. Thinking and writing that way is like learning from scratch. It was really hard. And memorizing in English was also another challenge. And being in a law school, class, when they call your name and you have to speak in front of everybody, was one of the biggest challenges. But then I graduated and I felt like that this is it. And, I'm in the top of the world. No, I needed the bar exam. Oh. And when you mentioned the bar exam, it triggers the worst trauma of my life. For me, it was really, really tough. And I got to teach myself so many new things. It took me 6 times. I passed on the 6th time, but I said it with a lot of pride, because I didn't give up. Another person would have given up.
For sure.
So for 4 years, I was failing, trying again, like hitting the wall many times, but I continue. And I try to mentor a lot of students who are going to go through the same process, that no matter what, you keep going.
And so how were you paying the bills while you were taking all these bar exams?
Working all day and studying at night. That was really tough because I used to go to Starbucks. I'm going to do the advertisement here. And it wasn't a good experience. Those late night coffee shops, a lot of weird people. It was very hard. I wasn't sleeping right. I wasn't taking care of myself. But it's part of the challenge, part of my story. And what was the worst thing that happened during that journey? They lowered the score of the bar exam after I passed.
No way.
So I would have passed at least a couple of years before, based on my scores, my increasing scores. But hey, for a reason, I had to go through that. And now it's part of my story. And even my clients admire that story. They're like, you're going to fight for me just like you fought for your exam.
No, I think that's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Good on you for not giving up.
Nope. I don't like
Never
this.
give up.
Never. That's my motto.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that going through these things is never easy, but you learn so much more than just having, a really smooth path.
Yeah. And everybody has their own time. Mm-hmm. I used to compare myself to other law school, classmates, and they passed on the first try. And I thought everybody was smarter than me, and they were just lawyers, and I wasn't a lawyer. And that comparison and that pressure that I was putting on myself wasn't good either. It blocks you. It prevents you from advancing and progressing on what you're trying to do. So at some point, I just relaxed and I stopped the comparison. And I said, maybe this is not my time. I'll try my best. I didn't have a plan B. I needed to pass at some point, and it was doable. And another thing I noticed was I was always increasing my score.
Yeah.
It's not that I was going backwards. I was always increasing, improving. So my time would come at some point, and it came.
I love it. Congratulations. We're so glad to have you part of our profession.
Thank you so much.
Make us proud.
Thank you.
So it says on your website, proud to be a Latina lawyer, promoting legal immigration and representing clients all over the world with their immigration matters. So I want to ask you a little bit about that and legal immigration as opposed to illegal immigration.
Ooh. That's a controversy right there.
So we were saying there might be some controversy, and you were sharing with us, sometimes, you have particular views about immigration and doing it the right way or the legal way versus not. And so how sometimes when you share those views, perhaps others within your field, you feel like they're kind of judging you or they don't like what you have to say.
Yeah. But it's normal though, when you stand out with a different perspective or view and you're against the current, you're always going to get some criticism, some comments, some pushback. But I didn't become a lawyer because I wanted to be just like anyone else. I became a lawyer because I believe in law enforcement. I believe in doing things right. One of the reasons why my country, Venezuela, went down is because we didn't respect the laws. We didn't really respect the laws. And if I see the same analysis here in the United States, just because it might affect me or my family or my friends, it doesn't mean that I should agree with that. I respect this country so much, and I'm so thankful to the United States for allowing me to have an opportunity here. That one of the things that I think I should push is legal immigration. We have immigration laws. Yes, they need to be reformed for sure and improved. But that doesn't mean that gives the people the right to violate them any time. And just by saying that, it has been so controversial. But I'm here and standing still.
And so, give us an example of, someone comes to you, I don't know, is there a certain type of case you would not do because of that, or because,
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. If I have a client who is from Mexico, or let's say it's an American citizen who wants to petition a son or daughter from Mexico, an average time for that kind of petitions is between 23 to 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
So when I have this client who has aged over time, or even, family members have died, waiting for that visa, waiting for that opportunity to come to the United States legally, then I get another person consulting me. Hey, I just entered through the border without documents. To me, it's just cutting up everybody in the line.
Yes.
That's the way I see it, and that's the way that many immigrants see it. So it's like a slap in the face for someone who have been waiting for so long. So that's why I filter my practice. I don't really do deportation removal cases because it's not what I want to promote, and it's not what I want to defend.
I like it, and thank you for being honest about that. I know Vanessa will have some things, but we had on here the president of the Hispanic National Bar Association, and she was explaining to us, within her group, she has people from all over the world, all different political views, all different experiences. People that have come from Cuba, people that have come from Venezuela, that perhaps, tend to lean a little more in the conservative or to the right, because of those experiences.
Yeah, of course.
Or might have, I think everyone, maybe people that are not well informed, presume that all Mexicans are in favor of illegal immigration. And, you see, like, that is a big mistake to presume that.
It is. And even Mexicans, like, Mexico has immigration laws,
Yes.
And even Mexicans want the country to enforce immigration laws, because if you cross to TJ and you see the disaster of all these waves of illegal immigrants from all over the world, it doesn't help the city. It affects the progress of its own citizens. So yeah, there is this stigma, the stereotype that Latinos have to think in a certain way. And if you dare to say that you think differently, hey, you're going to be targeted as a racist, as someone who doesn't support Latino communities, or I've been called I've been, insulted so many times with different names. And you know what? It's okay. But what I ask people is to respect points of view. This is a free country, and I'm so glad that I'm not living in communism anymore. So I should be able to believe in aliens if I want. I'm free to vote for whomever I want. And that shouldn't be a reason to be targeted as the enemy, especially here in California. So.
I agree. This is a place and a show and a platform where we talk about law in the Latino community, we don't talk about you only have to have these particular opinions
Exactly.
to be part of this community. And I think that we can, if we're not careful, divide ourselves so much, that we lose our power.
Exactly. Or assume that you have to be part of this group because you are Latino. No, it's good to have criteria, your own way of thinking. And if I'm very open, if I disagree with certain policy, I'm going to say it. But if I agree, I'm going to say it too. And I should be respected for that. In fact, some of my clients come to me because I'm that kind of attorney, because I am very objective. I'm just not going to say something in my social media to attract clients because that's what people want to hear. If I think that this change in policy is good for the majority of the citizens in the United States, then it is what it is. People voted for it. We have to respect the majority.
I love it. What do you have, Vanessa?
Yeah.
She has some hidden questions there.
Some notes. Like we talked about it. You've built a very impressive practice in immigration law. So I just wanted to ask you, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced starting your own firm, and how did you navigate those challenges?
We're learning about so many things that you're not taught in law school, like having a business, from taxes to accounting to marketing to relationships with networking with other attorneys, building a brand, and in general about the law, because the law always changes. And in immigration, we don't have just a book that tells you what to do. So it's just a matter of experience. And that's one of the things that I've put a lot of emphasis in, learning what I don't know and connecting with people who knows more than me. That's one of the keys. And in being humble to accept that I don't know everything, that I need to continue educating myself about different topics all the time.
Perfect.
Take notes. I'm giving free notes here.
Amazing, because I think even a lot of listeners know who John Gomez is and know that he has his own firm and is very successful. And I know that a lot of people wonder, how do you do that, especially new attorneys? Like, do we just start from scratch? Do we work at a law firm first, get to know things, and then go and explore? Or do we just find somewhere we're comfortable and stay there? So I think getting out of your comfort zone and deciding, yes, I want to start my own firm, this is what I want to do, and I'll figure everything out on the path. So,
and sometimes it's not even something that you plan. Sometimes just the destiny is pushing you in a certain way that you don't even realize at the time. Like, it's not that one day I just decided to open my own office. It was just the circumstances. I passed the bar when we were in COVID. So there were not many hirings at the time. And even if I got interviews, the interviews just focused on how many times I failed the bar. Like, by curiosity.
They didn't see that as a plus?
I guess. I mean, they were curious about it. But, I didn't have experience other than immigration because I was working as an assistant in an immigration law firm.
Okay.
And I wanted to try criminal law and I wanted to try maybe PI, but I didn't have the experience. And believe it or not, that was one of the hardest things I went through after passing the bar, because it was so hard to get a license. And now I get a license and I don't have a job. So it was like, oh, maybe I'm never going to get a job. But one thing led the other. And at some point I had a friend who needed an immigration attorney, and then another friend and another friend. And I realized I was in business. And that's when I decided to formalize my startup and my company.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think that as law students, a lot of people want to focus on school because school is very demanding, very hard, and we lose track of, well, I need to get out there and get experience because I can graduate, but if I'm graduating with no experience, or at least no experience in the field I know I'm interested in, it's going to be really tough.
It is. But, I believe that everybody has or has to try something at some point. I had a job when I was in law school, I had that opportunity. But practicing on your own as a solo attorney is not for everybody, because you don't have other people to rely on in your office, And I don't recommend, not every attorney is good at business. I know amazing attorneys who are good at what they do. They just want to focus on the law. They want to focus on writing briefs or they have something that calls them. But in my particular case, I was good with the spotlight and the marketing, and I had creativity, and I just wanted to fusion both. And I was not going to be able to do that working at a law firm. I wanted to have my own experiment, and thankfully has worked out. Some people told me that I needed to wait 5 years to see if I was going to make it. This is my 5th year, so I think I'm doing good. Yeah.
So we're talking about marketing and being out there, and like right before we went on air, you did like a little video, a little reel, kind of announcing your plans.
Always
Like
need to move.
how much do you do like on social media?
Well, I just use social media for my benefit in the sense of if I have something to say, if I'm doing something cool that I should inform my audience. But I don't really use social media for entertainment. And I think that's an important key, because people think that I'm always on the phone just like doing nothing, scrolling, and that's a waste of time. We have to be smart and use social media as a tool for learning, connecting, and promoting your business.
100%.
Yeah.
That was a lot of info. Now I'm going to ask questions to John.
No. No questions for me.
Now we can switch to Spanish.
Okay, está bien. Okay, but we have a new president.
Mm-hmm.
People have a lot of opinions. I'm not going to get into your opinions, but there's obviously been some changes within your field. Are those coming pretty hard and fast? And how are you adopting? How is it affecting your business?
Yes, it has been for the last 100 days of the new administration. It has been a lot of movement, and movement comes with a lot of panic from people. So I've been getting calls from even U.S. citizens afraid that they might get deported, and I'm like, there's no way you're gonna get deported. So relax. I can tell you that over 100 cases that I still have active, none of my clients have been detained. But you turn on the TV and that's the first thing that you see, and you start panicking. So calming down people has been my job for the last 100 days. Hey, like if something happens, then we will worry about it. But right now you don't have to worry. Of course, I have a section of my clientele that has been affected like directly with certain changes. So, for example, we have the TPS was canceled. TPS was like a temporary protective status that was given to Venezuelans and other countries for some time during the last administration. And all these people have been here, during this time, working legally, paying taxes. And one of the most recent changes was to cut this benefit. And all these people now like basically didn't know what was going to happen. Like, do we have to leave? Do we have another option? So it created a lot of, like questions, and people were crying. And I understand. I understand what's going on. And I also understand why perhaps the government needed to do certain changes. The way that many people see is that if you find a cockroach in your house, you're just not going to kill one cockroach. You try to kill all the cockroaches in the house. And unfortunately, if you let a lot of people in without background checks, without searching who that person is, you're going to have a lot of criminals crossing illegally, because people think everybody who comes, every immigrant is good. That's the problem. Not everybody's good. And from my own experience, like I had a lot of people who look like very bad from my country. I don't want to be that specific, but you can tell that there are a lot of people who were gangsters in Venezuela who came through the border and they got protection. So how do you deport these people if they are protected from deportation? They needed to cancel the programs. The bad thing about that is that it cuts the benefit for the good people as well.
Yes.
So I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of understanding the situation, but also being empathetic to the people who get affected. So it's a tough situation. It has created a lot of stress. But right now, those decisions are still in legal battles. We don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, in my opinion, it has to be like a case-by-case decision and analyze who is who, and maybe that would be a solution.
I feel like, thank you for sharing all that. I feel like within that, field, immigration, there is the potential for a lot of exploitation by like non-lawyers, bad lawyers, especially now with people panicking, like you say.
Yeah.
Like what advice would you give to, folks that have family that have immigration issues or they themselves have immigration issues? Who should they be on the lookout for? And what are some warning signs? Are there non-lawyers that try to do this work? Like, what are your kind of advice and warnings?
That's one of the biggest problems in immigration, that my competitors are not immigration attorneys. My competitors are paralegals, notarios, immigration consultants, foreign attorneys who act like lawyers. They don't specify to people that they're not lawyers, that they're not licensed. So they just promise that they're going to help them. And they have fancy offices. People cannot tell because in Latin countries, notarios are lawyers. So it's easy to mislead. And these people charge a lot of money. Like if they're lawyers, they give legal advice. They tell you what to do, what not to do, how to fill up this form, what to say. That's legal advice. And then you realize that you're in a big trouble because you did something bad, wrong. And at the end, you have to hire. If you were trying to save money, you will have to hire an attorney after spending more time and money and after having a record in the system. So my main advice, please don't go with someone who is a non-lawyer. That's why we kill ourselves here trying to pass the bar, so that we wouldn't be practicing without a license. And there's a lot of ignorance in that sense, from the Latino community, that they don't know they need lawyers for immigration cases. So hopefully, over time, people realize what's the difference of an attorney, a licensed attorney and a non-licensed attorney.
Like I have a love-hate relationship with the bar, the whole concept of the bar, the administration of the bar, mainly a hate relationship. But there's nothing about immigration on the bar exam, right?
Nothing, not even in law school.
And now I'm like, right? And now you spent all day doing it and you're like, I guess there's some relevance to the bar exam, but not much.
But it doesn't matter because it makes you, like, I needed to go through all that schooling, I needed to study evidence and criminal law in order to decide what I really wanted. But that's true. Immigration should be at least a couple of questions in the bar exam. Yeah. But there is an exam for people who specialize in immigration. It's like a mini bar that you can take after the bar.
Did you take that?
No, I don't want to go through more tests in my life. I'm done with exams.
So we have some listeners who might be questioning because your last name is Piontkovski. So, and I know that you are a Latina, but you also have Eastern and European roots.
Yeah, and some Russians come to me speaking in Russian. I'm like, vodka.
Yeah. So how does your identity shape how you move throughout the legal field?
With my last name?
With just in general, like you're Latina, European, all of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I recently did my DNA test. You should do it, Johnny. It's amazing. I have 19 matches. Like I'm a woman from the world. Like,
wow, okay.
Yeah. And it's because, Europeans used to mix a lot, I guess. But I have a little bit of everything. And that's what makes you feel like there is no such thing as a pure race. I'm a combination. I come from immigrants. And my grandma was from Yugoslavia. But she never called herself Yugoslavia. She called herself Russian because her parents were Russian. And my grandpa was Polish. And they all moved to Venezuela after the war. And I grew up as a Latina, and it was super cute to see my grandma with a Russian accent saying, I want a arepa. It was so cute. And nowadays I use that combination of my Latina with my European roots. And now I feel more American than an American. So, it's beautiful. When you are able to adapt to the country where you are having a life, it's beautiful to use all those little parts of you and your family as your signature.
Yeah, super cool. Like, we were talking before we went on about there's different pockets of, European immigrants in South America. We've got, big Italian, community in Argentina, a big German community in Argentina, Russian, Polish community in Venezuela, German community in Venezuela also. And it's just cool because in the end, we're just kind of one people,
We are. But it's also beautiful because it's like a flower that is mixed with different parts of other flowers. That's the way that I see it. And I use it in my advantage because I have interviews or consultations everywhere. I have clients everywhere. So I recently had a client from Poland, and we help migrate here. I had clients in Asia, in Africa. I'm going to have an interview next week to represent a client from El Congo.
Wow.
And, it's so multicultural. And if you're someone like me with 19 matches on your DNA, that helps you.
Right. And if you say the guy from the Congo, I'm 2%.
I'm 2% from Africa. That's my people.
Well, see, I know that you were a Zumba instructor, so you got that.
I also got clients from my Zumba class at the time.
I love it.
Yeah. You just have to use everything that makes you happy and that makes you feel identified. And that's what I do with my practice.
I love it. Any other questions? All right. So I'm gonna, this is the last question that I've been leaving guests with. There's a podcast called Crack. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, it's a Mexican podcast by this guy, and he always says, if you had the ability to write in the sky, words for millions of people to see, what would be your message to all of us?
Never give up. That's what I tell everybody. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how tired you feel, no matter how crazy you think the outcome is going to be, don't give up.
Now, have you ever heard Winston Churchill's famous wartime speech about that?
I might have. I think I listened to a lot of speeches when I was trying to motivate myself during the war. But do you remember any?
Well, I just it was we shall never give up, and so it reminded me of you. But I love that. We will never give up. I love that because I feel the same way. A lot of stuff comes to me all the time. People trying to take me down, taking shots at me, struggles, obstacles. If you just keep fighting, keep standing up, keep getting up, get off that stool, and keep plowing ahead, then things tend to work out, right?
That's the mental way to see every challenge in your life.
Now, where can our listeners find you, learn more about you, your website, your socials?
Everything that has the Piontkovski, I'll be there. My social media is open. I'm very open with my social media. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I post a lot of things every day. And it has been great because people like the connection. Then they want to see who you are in the natural outcome of you. And I'm proud of my social media. I just reached 30K.
Oh my gosh.
That's too much,
That's
compared to
good.
influencers.
That's pretty good.
That's not too much, but I feel so proud.
Oh gosh. I think I might pick up some viewers or some followers. Followers.
We're gonna
if you tag me, woo. So what do they call it? Handle? What is that called? What's your handle?
What is the handle?
Like your name.
Yeah.
What is
it's Piontkovski Law.
Piontkovski Law.
Yes.
How do you spell that for our...
P as in Peter, I-O, N as in Nancy, T-K-O-V, S-K-I, and law.
Everybody check her out. Follow her. Give her a like.
Please, help me grow.
Help her grow. We got to get her to 35,000. This month.
Yeah.
And we're in May. It's the first day of May, so this works out.
Yeah, I'm going to make my math here. I'm going to calculate how many followers I'm going to get after this podcast.
Well, I'm super happy to have you here. Thank you for being our guest. I'd encourage all of you to go check her out at Piontkovski Law on Instagram. Probably the same thing on just the website. You can check out her website and all the great things that she does for people seeking the beautiful life that is the life of living in the United States. And she can certainly, I think, represent people better than most because she herself has realized that struggle and dream and really appreciates what she has here today. So that's very inspiring to us. Everybody, thank you so much. This episode of The Latino is brought to you as always by your sponsor, Gomez Fralatriz, a national consumer rights law firm that represents victims of personal injury, employment wrongs, consumer violations, and civil rights violations of both English and Spanish. Hopefully you can tune in to the next time, but in the meantime, check this out. Share it, follow us, give us a thumbs up. And until next time, signing off, The Latino.
Thank you for listening to the Latino podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.